part 3 of our awesome interview with Sister Ekemini Uwan. And I'm sure that after you hear this conversation, that you'll be encouraged and inspired. I want to refer you also to go back to parts 1 and 2 to get a comprehensive fit of the work and witness of Ekemini Uwan. Well, I know its focus is Black women.
That's right.
But I will say to those of you watching us, it would do you well, because I'm a Black man and I love what they're doing. So it would bode you well to check it out, because it makes you think and it broadens you.
Yes.
Now let me lead to the book. Yeah, it will. And let me lead to the book. And I told you this earlier. Matter of fact, it was a few weeks ago. I went and I got the book.
Thank you.
And you started off talking about colorism. Matter of fact, the title of that chapter, the first chapter of the book, is The Audacious Perseverance of Colorism.
That's right.
And when I read that chapter, I tell you what, not only was it powerful, I declare in some ways it made my nappy hair straight. It just pow. Because you dealt with colorism pervasively in our culture, how we've been affected from outside forces. Kind of unpack that a little bit for us.
Yeah. So to me, it was important to, and true to our name, Truth Table, we by God's grace try to tell the truth about what's going on, about what's impacting us as Black women, but also impacting us as a community, right? And so, yes, the table is built by Black women and for Black women, but in the standing room section, we see brothers. There are Black brothers there too, and everybody else, our non-Black listeners, are in the standing section as well. But I see in my mind's eye, it's the sisters at the table with the brothers standing right there behind us and around us. You know what I mean? So it's a little family meeting, if you will. And so it was important for us to, I think, send a signal that we're gonna get down to the marrow, to the white meat. We're gonna get past even the white meat and get down into the marrow. And so starting the book off with colorism lets the reader know what time it is at Truth's Table. That we're not playing. And yeah, we're gonna come for that that elephant in the room. We're gonna come for that shameful, that sight of shame, I think, within our community. And so to me, it was important to talk about colorism. I think in light of a lot of the anti-racism rhetoric and things, I was like, you just can't do, I'd say, good or even thorough anti-racism work without having, an anti-colorist lens. You know what I mean? You can't be an anti-racist and a colorist. You gotta, you don't have to, you know what I mean? And colorism is discrimination, intraracial discrimination within a racial group based on the melanin or of somebody's skin tone. So oftentimes darker skinned people are discriminated against and marginalized within their own community because they're darker skin, whereas lighter people are gain preferences, are more preference or privileged within those groups. And that extends not only just in Black communities, but also non-white racial groups. This phenomenon occurs, and it is a global occurrence because white supremacy is global.
And for those of you watching, you have to get the book. We could open this up some more, but I'm purposely not, because you need to get the book. But yeah, that's it. That's it.
That's the book cover.
But the reason why you need to get the book is that this is not just someone musing about what this looks like, but she covers the gamut of the issue of colorism. So much so that there's an immigrant diaspora / segment to this that she covers as well. So it's full circle.
That's right.
So you really need to hear this. And then the other piece that got me, well, the whole book got me, because your partner in crime, so to speak, also does chapters. Matter of fact, she does the chapter on protest as spiritual practice.
Mm-hmm.
And then she does the chapter on forgiveness. And then we kind of get a glimpse into what the podcast looks like as we look at the book. But now, just give us a snippet on decolonized discipleship, because that was powerful as well.
Yeah, well, I'd actually be curious to hear how it impacted you and why that one resonated with you. But yeah, I can give a brief synopsis of that. Yeah, so I wrote about decolonized discipleship because in light of what I had been seeing or observing at the time, I think a lot of people were beginning to walk away from the faith because of racism that they were experiencing, and even the political climate, and just seeing like, does this faith have room for me? Is this the white man's religion? I think these are the questions, at least in America, for sure, that people, Black Christians in particular, ask often. And because of that, they wonder, like, is there space? Or sometimes some people walk away because of it. And so I was trying to, like, it was really a clarion call and a call back home. Like, wait a minute, y'all, before you throw Jesus out with the baby water, let me just help to reframe the faith for you and help you to see like what it is. Now, if you reject it after that, well, then I pray that the Holy Ghost will draw you. But let's make sure that we're clear on the facts, on the history, our participation in the faith, and the fact that it is an Eastern religion and not a Western religion. Even that fact alone is really important to know. And so that's kind of like my call out, if you will.
Well, here's how it impacted me, to answer your question.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, you have a segment in there where you talk about how you can be colonized in the church as a Black woman based upon how things are done in the church. I mean, I think you had a segment in there of something that happened to you in the midst of a worship service when a preacher made some commentary.
That's right.
So I won't get into that. Y'all need to buy the book. All right. But then also, you framed it in terms of missionary practice. When the missionaries went to Africa, you framed that. And you just gave a whole framework of dealing with the whole white supremacy piece that I think was powerful. And it leads me to this. You were involved in a movie. It came out, I think, on Juneteenth. Various people were in the movie. And I think it was a part of what the Jude 3 Project and some other people were doing, answering some of the questions, because you alluded to it in your previous answer, answering some of these questions about, is this the white man's religion? Do we have a place in this religion? Was Christianity in Africa? So kind of speak to that whole project and speak to some of that, if you would.
So you're talking about probably the unspoken document.
That's it.
Yeah, that Jude 3 Project just released and is now on Amazon Prime. The founder and friend of mine, Lisa V. Fields, is the founder of that organization. And so that documentary is meant to answer that question: is Christianity the white man's religion? And it's meant to bust that myth, to hopefully eliminate that question, really, with some historical insight from historians that study, the history of Christianity in Africa, with some pastors as well, who think in that line, in those ways, some maybe public Christians, and maybe prominent Christians too, that think deeply about these types of questions, and then public theologian, like myself, and professors too, that are in there, that are providing some insight and some context there too. So that's a very valuable resource, really important, and I think it's good for us to know. the history and the ways that our ancestors have continued, persevered in the faith and just continued. And now they did not inherit, they did not necessarily inherit a faith from white people. Many of our enslaved ancestors and relatives came here as believers, and then there were some that were Muslim, right? There's ever, Catholic, or those that held to African traditional religion. So it's not as if the story is often told that this is where, in America, or on the plantations, in Jamaica is where people came to Christianity. True for some, not all. And so I think that's important to say that.
And you have to watch this movie also because of how Christianity developed amongst us, because there's a difference between the packaged white Jesus, slaves obey your masters. There's a difference between
Sure.
that and the faith that has been entrusted to us, where you start a relationship with Jesus Christ.
That's right.
Big difference.
That's right.
And the other thing is, and this is controversial for some, I don't understand it, you really don't have that many white people in the Bible, if you think about it. And the white folk that show up usually are in a cameo role. They're not the main features of the witness. They're not.
Mm-hmm.
But people don't get that. For example, we grew up watching the 10 Commandments around Easter, right?
That's right.
So now they put some shoe polish on Yul Brynner, made him look black. But Charlton Heston, who was Moses, was white. The only problem with that is both of them were of African descent. So you were talking about black people versus black people. Wasn't white people versus white people. All these people were ethnic. But that's not what's presented to us. So we don't get that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So that's why it's important to be able to set that record straight. It's just, it's important. It matters. It really does.
All right. One other thing, and then we're going to close out. She is indeed a public theologian, been on many platforms. What I want to talk about this specific one that happened. Now I'm going to date it. I just want to let you know I did the research. July the 14th, 2021. You wrote, "We could have changed the world in the Atlantic."
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that, because this is talking about the pandemic. So I want to give you room. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. So, yes, that was, okay. So I always like to give this disclaimer because I'm a writer, but it's the editors at the publications that choose the title of the articles. And so I was talking about in that article, which actually the editor just reached out to me today, or actually this week, about writing something else. And I was like, I need to get back to that editor. So I'm glad you asked this, because it reminds me to reply to that email.
Yeah.
But I was talking about the ways that we have, the inequities, that have worsened during the pandemic, and the racial inequities, of course, because that our community has been hit. It's been one of the hardest hit communities from COVID, and the importance of talking about that, but also talking about the ways that the opportunity that in the midst of a crisis, we have an opportunity to make a change, to make a sea change, structural changes that could have been made that were not made, and still have not been made during the pandemic. So to me, it was really important to talk about that and to write about that, in hopes that it would spark some sort of change. That hasn't happened, but and sadly, the article still remains, it's still relevant. It's like sometimes I'm writing because I'm like, I don't want what I'm saying to be relevant still. I'm like, I want it to be like, you know what? We're not going to do that anymore. We're going to go in a different direction. And that hasn't happened yet, but yeah, that's how that article came about. So yeah, last summer is when that came out, and I went on MSNBC to talk about it for a bit too.
But see, that article was prophetic because we were still in the pandemic, so to speak.
Still are.
And still are, and you were able to see and speak truth to power. All right, one other thing, and then we'll wrap up. Just hit me. Mahogany, Hallmark. Talk about that. How'd you get involved with it? What you do with it? Because I've never met anybody that writes for Hallmark, so it intrigues me.
So funny. Yeah, Hallmark, Mahogany. Yeah, they reached out to me toward the end of last year because they were starting, or last quarter of last year, because they wanted to start a writing community, an uplifted and empowered writing community for Black women. And I love Mahogany. I feel like I don't know a Black person that doesn't love Mahogany. When we go buy cards, we're looking for the Mahogany cards. At least I'm looking for the Mahogany cards.
I am too.
And I would love to write some cards for them one day. But they reached out to me because of my writing and maybe my work and my public presence, and they extended an invitation for me to write within their writing community, which was a really cool opportunity. And it's good. It helps me to exercise my writing muscles. So I gotta write at least one article per month. And I've been doing that since last quarter of 2021. And it's been really rewarding and be able to write to Black women, for Black women, which is my calling and part of my purpose, and aligns well with the work that I do at Truth's Table, and be able to talk and write in ways that are a little bit more freeing, because it's like I'm talking to us, and so I can make things a little bit more plain. I don't have to translate stuff as much, and I could talk about what's real and what's needed, and what I'm wrestling with. And so in some ways it's sometimes my public journal, not always, but there's some stuff that's like, yeah, I'm working through that, thinking through that. so I invite the Hallmark community in to read along and to work it out along with me.
That is wonderful. Want to close out in this way. First of all, do you have any upcoming projects? You can include the book, of course, and any closing remarks you wish to make to those who are watching you right now.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Reverend Hutchinson. I invite you all to please buy our book, Truth's Table, Black Women's Musings on Life, Love, and Liberation. It's been fun to see where people are seeing the book. Somebody saw it at Starbucks. People are seeing it at Barnes and Nobles. They're seeing it at the mom and pop bookstore. So that's been cool. And of course, you can order it online too at bookshop.org or Amazon or Walmart or Target. It is all over the place. And so I hope it's a blessing to you. If you love it, I'd love for you to write a review. It doesn't have to be super long. Give it a very strong rating as well if it resonates with you. So you can do that, and you can also buy it. The links are also available on truthstable.com as well. The current project is trying to wrap up season 6 of Truth's Table. I actually just recorded an episode right before I came on with you for Truth's Table, and then of course continuing to record for Get in the Word with Truth's Table, which is our daily podcast. We invite you to get in the Word with us. Your day one starts when you hit play on day one, and you can hear myself and Christina reading the Word to you and praying at the end. It's usually no more than 20 minutes, but it's a great way to start your day, or a great way to end your day, or listen to it whenever you want to. For me, I like to start my day in that way. And so that's what I've got going on now, working on trying to shift into some solo book projects and things. I just have to be able to clear my schedule and calendar in order to do those things. So I'm hoping to begin working on my own solo book too. So your prayers are appreciated on that, because I'm like, whoo, I need some help.
Definitely. And of course, if you are willing, we would be glad to have conversation about some of those upcoming projects, because I think people need to hear your voice. And I'm appreciative that you've paused, because look, she says she's Nigerian, but Jamaicans are related to Nigerians, so she got that Jamaican 20 job grind. So you already hear that.
Absolutely. Y'all got it from us. Lord help.
You're right. We're the derivative. You're right. You're right. But bottom line is you're doing the thing. Thank you for being with us. And thank you for giving us the stories we haven't heard that need to be told. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What a powerful sister. Well, y'all, support a podcast and also buy the book that you can find on Amazon.com or any local bookstore. And while you're at it, subscribe so you don't miss the content that's coming from Conversations with Hutch, where the stories that need to be heard are the ones that we sure enough tell. See you soon. Take care.